Welcome back to Empire Training Q&A, and I'm going to go through some common questions that people have when they're starting their fitness journey. What is the biggest mistakes people make when starting their fitness journey? One, they're not honest with themselves on where they're actually at. Whether it's how bad a shape they are, how they got there, what their actual habits truly look like versus the reality that they've constructed in their head. So sometimes it just needs to be like, let's be honest with ourselves and figure out where am I actually, and that's how you actually start making progress. And two, it's patience. They want the quick fix. They want to be able to create this ideal end goal, and they're focusing on where they want to be versus making lifestyle changes that will affect lasting change. So we need to decide, hey, I didn't get here overnight, so I'm not going to get to my new goal overnight. And so we want to make lifestyle changes, change who you are and become the identity of that new person. James Clear in Atomic Habits talks about the identity change is the best way to create new habits. And so if you want to quit smoking, so that the stopping habits and creating new habits work the same way. And so instead of saying, no, I'm trying to quit smoking, you say, no, I'm not a smoker. That does something psychologically to you where now instead of saying, I'm trying to quit, you're like, I'm not even that person that does smoke. So let's say your goal is fitness, to improve your health. You now need to become the person who is healthy, become the person who is fit, and think, what does that person do daily? And that's how we add these habits into your identity. Is training to failure necessary for muscle growth? This one is nuanced. While I don't think it is necessary or even optimal to train to failure all the time, most people actually don't even get near failure because they quit mentally before they even get to the physical failure. So understanding what actual failure is your first step. And then we can start implementing the RPE scales and things like that to really optimize your lifting. How much volume should you train each muscle group per week? Once again, this one's relative. Everybody is different. Different people have different capacities. Different muscle groups have different capacities and different recovery rates. So that being said, we cannot give you a blanket statement of you need this much volume or this many sets or reps, but there is a threshold to where after a certain amount of volume, there doesn't seem to be an anabolic response anymore. So there is a threshold, and finding that threshold for each person is important, but we do have data that shows maybe like 7 to 10 sets per week per muscle group is a really good starting point. Machines versus free weights, which one builds more muscle? Once again, it's nuanced. So it depends on what we're asking. So you can have arguments for both, but it very much depends on the question that you're asking. What builds more muscle? Like, are we aiming for hypertrophy? Then I would kind of lean towards machines because you can isolate and get a higher stimulus to fatigue ratio versus free weights. So if your goal is like a bodybuilding, like hypertrophy thing, then I do like to lean on machines more. But if you are an athlete or you care about just pure brute strength, then we can start working into some free weights. But I think there's utilization in both for all types of training. How do you train when you're tired and unmotivated? I love this question because it happens to everyone. It happens to fitness professionals. It happens to anyone and everyone goes through waves of motivation. And once again, when you come to that question of identity, it's not about, am I motivated? It's just something we do every day. It's like brushing your teeth. You don't feel excited to brush your teeth. You don't feel unmotivated to brush your teeth. You just do it. It's just part of your daily routine. So sometimes your workouts are gonna be more intense. Sometimes you're gonna go in and you're not gonna feel good, but we're gonna go in and we're just gonna do it anyway. We're gonna push to the level that we can. You're not always gonna set PRs. You're not always gonna feel like you had the best workout of your life, and that's okay. What is the best split for busy adults? That's a hard question. It's a nuanced question, and my answer is, it depends. The answer is what works best for you. What will you actually stick with long term? There's scientifically optimal like programs, and then there's what's optimal because you'll actually stick to it and do it. And so I would say I lean towards the one that you're gonna actually do and stick to is way more optimal, because if I give you the scientifically optimal workouts but you don't see them through, then they're not optimal because you're not actually adhering to it. Should women train differently than men? Yes and no. Obviously we have different biologies, we are different. Men tend to have stronger upper bodies, women tend to have their strength in their lower bodies, different hormone cycles, things like that. But in general, women should not avoid lifting heavy weight. Actually, they need to lean into the heavy weights almost more than men because of the longevity as women get older with osteoporosis, sarcopenia, things like that. We want to optimize their lifespan for longevity, and so building strong, robust bodies is going to do the most for women as they get older. Do you actually need to change your workouts every few weeks? Are you bored? Like, are you not sticking to them? So it's like, we do adapt to our training stimulus, but that is also where progressive overload comes in. We're trying to always add more weight, more sets, more reps, increasing our volume over time. We do need to push and have times to taper back, and we can switch up our movements, but it doesn't have to be every few weeks. It can be, for me personally, it's like every 12 weeks. Maybe even longer, and then I'll switch them out. But it's different. Some people get really bored with the training. Some people are fine being with the monotony of doing the same things all the time and just adding weight, stacking days. Now we're gonna ask some questions about nutrition. What is the best diet for fat loss? The one that puts you in a calorie deficit. That's the answer. And the one that you'll stick to long term, because statistically, if you're not going to stick to the diet long term, you're not going to keep the weight off long term. That's my argument against keto or anything that is extreme, because if you're not going to if it's not something you can do for 5 years, 10 years, then we're not doing anything that has any longevity in it, and you're just going to have this yo-yo. How much protein do you actually need? This one, I am more conservative on. I don't even do a gram per pound. A lot of the research says you can do less than that. I do about 0.8 grams per pound of lean mass, not total body weight. And so I get about 150 grams of protein a day for about 190. And so, I feel like that is optimal for me. Should you track macros forever? No. I personally lean on the idea of tracking macros during certain phases where you're trying to optimize certain results, and then having diet breaks where we come off of it for mental health. When I'm in a cut, I very much recommend tracking, knowing what we're doing, or in a building phase. But if you're in a phase of like, hey, let's take a diet break, then let's check out mentally for a minute. Don't go crazy. Still eat healthy. Eat in these same habits you worked really hard to build. But we don't have to log it all the time. It takes a different type of person to do that, and I don't expect every single client to do that. Discipline versus motivation, what matters more? I think I've been very clear in the past that I lean heavily on discipline over motivation, because motivation goes up and down. And I've used this metaphor, it's like brushing your teeth. You don't have to feel excited about it, you just have to do it. And so fitness is kind of like that. You will have days that you're really excited to work out and you really want to do it. And there's some days you don't, and you just have to show up and do it.